Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LUMNA Sisterhood series, where we share stories of women empowering women for a better world. So today we have Dr. Lindsay Chang, endodontist extraordinaire. And at 4'10", she's a little lady making a big impact in this space, doing things from the heart and her own way. She is truly a sister to me, and I'm so excited to have her here because I just find that she always has such kind-hearted, centered wisdom to share with me. So I'm excited for her to be here to share that with you. All right, so let's get into it. The first question I have for you, unless you want to say something.
No, I was just gonna say I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so my first question is, in what ways have you experienced stress or overwhelm or anxiety or a sensitive nervous system on your journey? And what did you realize from it?
So you probably know this better than most, but I am an internalizer, so I don't really show stress externally. So most people are always like, how do you do it? You always look so fine when you just, nothing seems to ever bother you. And the truth is that's not that true. It's just that I'm just not expressing it. So, and maybe sometimes I'm not even fully conscious of it, but then it will manifest itself physically in health problems. So for me, it's always been kind of like a silent, I think, reaction to stress that maybe I've underestimated how much impact it has on me. So I've struggled with tendencies for autoimmune diseases in the past. I remember right before dental school, I got this weird autoimmune response to, I'm assuming stress and maybe my diet, but, loss function in my hands, like this is probably TMI, but felt like I had a UTI, but I didn't, it was just my bladder was very inflamed. And so I think that's how my body responds to stress. I don't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm probably going too hard and need to take a step back and put some more self-care in.
Yeah. So I would love to hear, what you realized from it. If there's anything else that you want to share, but I just want to highlight two things that you said, which I think are really important. One thing is that, there's some people like me who, if I'm stressed, it, I am not internalizing it. I am, but it's also very much on the outside. But there's some people who are experiencing it who you would never know. And I think it's just helpful just in terms of treating everybody with a level of kindness that everybody is going through things, even if you can't tell on the outside,
Right. No, I 100% agree, because I used to, I still do. I love going, and I love doing a million things at once. But then I realized that I can't function like that, because one, I don't function as highly as I can. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of a white space. So I realize now that I have to build in white space, which is where I don't have any plans. And then I can either do, that's kind of when I either do my yoga or my journaling or just like creative thinking for the practice and for the business, because otherwise it never gets done. And it's like you need like a full chunk, like not just like 30 minutes, but like sometimes like 3 hours or more, where you don't feel like you have an agenda after your white space, so that you're not like pressured to be creative in those 2 hours that you have.
So, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other thing I just wanted to comment on from your story, because I think it's important for people. I think it was like a really important point, which is that it's so important not to just suck things up and power through, because even if you can mentally do that, it does physically really seriously affect you, like your health, like presently and long term. So I think that was a really important message for everyone. So it sounds like the things that you learned from it is that you need to take care of yourself, and you need to build in some white space. Are there any other things that you realized from your journey with stress or overwhelm or sensitive nervous system?
I realize I do have a limit. So I don't know when that limit is reached. I have a hard time gauging that, but all of a sudden I'll hit a wall where I'm just like, feel either really low, like, just kind of hit very negative thoughts about all this. I don't even want to go there, but like I'll hit that wall where I'm just completely exhausted, wiped out, feel like maybe I can't do this, maybe, I'm not enough. And it's ridiculous because I've just been going so hard the last however long, but then I hit those points, and that's when I have to reset. So it's just, learning how to kind of predict the reset before needing the reset is one of the things that I think is important. And and doing self-care things, which isn't like necessarily going to a spa, but like just the rituals we do at home in our free time, whether it's meditation or yoga or books we read and podcasts we listen to.
Yeah. So building some things to balance your life versus just constantly ongoing productivity.
Right.
Yeah, which helps with the productivity too.
No, it does. It's actually better for the productivity.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're sharing this, because I know that from my experience with you and what people see of you, you just seem like somebody who always has everything completely together. And I think for the most part you do, but I think it's helpful and that's why I love this series where people are sharing their stories, so people can realize that even everybody who looks like their whole life is just completely perfectly in line and put together are also going through these like internal struggles that they also have to manage. So just love that you're here sharing that with everyone. Okay, any other things that you found work?
Yeah, not trying to do it all. You have to get help. You need at least I feel like I need a lot of help in order for me to be my best self. And so whether or not that means, kind of figuring out what tasks have to get done, and then just doing the ones that give you the most reward, and then everything else, if you can outsource it, it makes life so much easier, whether it be like helping with cleaning the house or with meal prep or stuff like that, which I don't get that much joy out of, but it's so helpful when other people can come in and help me do those things.
Did you have a problem with allowing yourself to have help in the beginning? Because I feel like sometimes people know this, but for some reason they have a struggle with it. Or not really. It was just
more of a battle between me and Rick, my husband, for this. He had a problem with it, and I'm like, what do you mean? We need this.
Okay, so just getting other people involved on board, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any advice for people who might have that challenge?
Try it.
That's true.
Try it and then see what your life feels like.
I feel like that's such a good tip. Sometimes when you want someone to get on board with you about something, instead of convincing them this needs to be the thing that's going to happen forever, you can literally be like, let's just try it and see.
Just try it for a week.
They're the ones who are like on board. Okay, so I'm really excited about talking about your journey as a woman building a business and having babies at the same time, because that's a big thing it's a passion for both myself and Juliana. It's something that we feel very strongly about wanting to support in women, because there's just generally this thing that, when a woman is having kids, she just needs to go and sit on a shelf for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think especially like in the working world, you kind of just dismiss people like who are having kids. It's almost like they have a disability and they aren't able to do anything, which is really unfair for women, because at that stage of life, right, like in your late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, even early 40s, that's when you're gearing up with your career. So I just thought that you had such an interesting story about that, and that's why I wanted to feature you first on this. For those who don't know, Lindsay has built her own practice as an endodontist while having two beautiful girls, my nieces, who I'm obsessed with. And I'm just curious, about this topic of designing like a balanced path, right? We have a series called The Balanced Path, Empowering Work-Life Harmony for Sensitive Souls. So I'm just curious about if you have any just words of encouragement, insights, advice for women who are also in their childbearing years, but also want to create something in the world.
Right.
But it's hard.
Yeah, no, it is hard. I mean,
That is not.
like balance, like it's always a work in progress. Like it's never like you've arrived. You may have like moments or larger moments that you've worked on to feel balanced, but you're constantly kind of going up and down. And I think what I found, and I think it's great that you have Juliana, is having a partner has been amazing. Because like I said, I don't try to do it all. Like I want to do the things that I'm really good at, and then find people who are good at the other things around me to be a part of that team. So I think it's about finding the right people who match you in the sense that you don't just love being around them, but also they contribute in ways that you're not good at. So I'm not good at like multitasking or the small details or sometimes fine accounting. And so Matt, my business partner, like he does all of that while I do like the branding or the marketing and the HR and stuff like that. So it's about finding the right complements, but also realizing that having kids and doing a business never feels like it's the right time. Like you never, there's a thought, well, maybe I'll do my business first and then have kids, or maybe I'll have the kids now and then do my business after. But the truth is, it just never seems to feel like there's the right time, because you always have a million things going on. When the kids grow up, it's not that it gets easier so much as it gets different, and you just have different priorities that are constantly changing. And I think it's just kind of, even if you're afraid to do something, if you feel strongly enough about it, to just keep doing it, or keep moving in that direction. It's about having the courage, which means you're not afraid that you're not afraid. It's just that you keep acting despite that.
Yeah.
And I think if you really want something and you're passionate about it, you will make it happen. And then those fears that you once had, you don't feel afraid of them anymore, because the more that you're doing it and the more that you're like, oh my gosh, I can do something like this, it gives you the confidence to keep dreaming and pursuing dreams.
Totally. I love this so much. I love this aspect of doing it despite the fear. I remember someone once said to me, go forth not without fear, but because you know it's what you must do.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I feel afraid all the time. Every time we make a big decision, I'm like, or if I do something that's totally out of my comfort zone, I doubt myself 100%. And then it's like, but you know what, I'm going to do it anyways. And that's, I think, that's what action that, is what makes a difference.
Yeah. How do you get yourself to take that action? Because I think a lot of us can talk ourselves out of it without, like, it definitely is coming from fear, but we can rationalize why we shouldn't start, and 1 to 10, 15, 20, a whole lifetime can pass. So do you have any like things that you do that kind of help you take that step, even if you're afraid or talking yourself out of it?
I think it's starting with the small things. So for instance, I've always had such a fear of speaking in large groups or even publicly. And then I went to, we went to school in Jamaica, and in Jamaica, you weren't encouraged to talk in class. And then I went to private boarding school where 50% of the grade now is class participation for some of the classes. So I forced myself to go in that because I'm like, well, I really want to be a better communicator. So it's about finding those little areas of discomfort that make you a better person. And they seem small in the moment because it's just talking in a group in front of a class. And then it's, okay, now I'm going to do a presentation in front of the class. And then now I'm going to talk publicly on this platform, so it's about doing the little things. You don't just have to go big, just get comfortable being uncomfortable, or feeling like that is the next step in order to have growth, because you just don't have growth if you're not a little bit uncomfortable.
Totally. No, this is so funny. I remember when I wanted to do work related to helping people release anxiety, I also like had this insane fear of public speaking. And I did this thing where I spoke literally in front of 5 people and I was like, I'm having anxiety, but giving this talk about not having anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nervous talk about it all. And I remember, like, I hope you don't mind me blowing you up on the spot, but like the first time you did an interview, you were literally nervous for like weeks.
Oh my God, I couldn't, it was like nauseating. It was terrible. It was like a nightmare. This is torture.
You were like literally like in turmoil. I was like, oh my God, Lynn, you literally launched a business without as much fear as doing this
You know,
podcast interview.
it's those things that you take with from childhood. I don't know.
I know. And then literally right now, right before we started, for anyone who's watching, like literally I said to her, Lynn, do you want me to give you the questions beforehand? And she's like, no, it's okay. I find that when I think about it, I overthink it. So literally she's like answering all these questions on the fly, and it's perfectly natural, but you had to go through that first podcast experience where you shit your pants for 2 weeks.
Exactly. I did.
Your flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have a follow-up question. So I know I love this concept that it never feels like the right time, right? And I think that that is true for everyone, but particularly having kids, right? How do you know if it's the right time?
But I think you have to be strategic about it as well. So it's not just about like taking a leap of faith. You have to be strategically taking a leap of faith, right? Knowing that one, what you're doing, you're still going to be able to afford to live, right? As basic as that. And so that you still have a source of income, that the risk that you're taking isn't going to take away that source of income, because that becomes very stressful. So you have to make sure you've covered your bases where maybe your partner or somebody you're with, or you have another job, something like that, that you can keep funding yourself and your family or whatever that is, where that doesn't become a factor. Because once that becomes a factor, you're going to fight or flight and you are just not gonna perform, right? So I think you have to make sure you have your foundation of either people or support or finances kind of there. And it doesn't have to be extravagant, but make ends meet. And then after that, just making sure like what you're dreaming is going to bring you more fruit in the end, right? So that reward is going to be worth all of everything that you're giving up in the moment. So I think it's just doing that, making sure you have things lined up in place before you do that. And if you can do all of that and you're worried about the sleepless nights and everything like that, that's just kind of like put your head down and just keep going. You know, there's going to have to be some like, what's that, buck up buttercup or something like that term. Saw this woman wearing that shirt the other day in the airport, and I was like, yeah, there's a part of that where you really just have to like just
Power through.
keep your head down, power through. Yeah.
Well, this is coming at a great time, because hopefully by the time this comes out, I would have let everyone know that I am pregnant. Second kid, and I've been wondering about that very same question. So that's great that you
You already do so much though. It's like, it's just another level.
Yeah, I think for moms, it's like you adjust and then you get more careful with the time that you're using. So you're actually able to do even more, even though you have less time. I mean, it's not that it's easier. It's just like, it's an adjustment. So, all right. Is there anything else that you wanted to share for women who want to start, who want to do something career-wise that they feel very called to do while at the same time having a family? It's okay if you've already shared everything, but just wanted to leave the space just in case. I feel like there's something.
I think this has been something that I struggle with, that I think a lot of other women do. And I think we've touched on it before, is our tendency to think, what if I can't, you know, and just believing that we are more powerful than we give ourselves credit, and that there is so much to be unlocked if we just give it the opportunity. And that it's okay to fail, you know, like it is 100% okay to fail. If you go through historically, the people who have been most successful, they've failed so much. And it's because they're okay with the failure, because one day they'll make it big. And so it's just, you know,
I knew there was something else in there. I'm so glad I pulled it out. That's amazing. I'm having your Oprah moment crying, making me cry right now. That was very beautiful, Lynn. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So like, I'm curious if you have faced sexism in the workplace, or sizeism in your kids. So, but like, whatever, but I think in particular, because that's something that, Julia and I are also connected on. And I think that a lot of women can really relate to. So yeah, curious if you faced it and how you overcame it, or if you have any advice on it in general.
So I feel like sexism is something that unfortunately, or just the way it is in terms of, it's something subconscious that happens in people's brain. They're not actually necessarily trying to be sexist, but it's kind of like maybe a shorter man in business versus a taller man in business. For some reason, the larger stature or a man just commands more respect, commands more authority. And of course, I've always felt like that as a woman, but I don't know if that's in my own head, or if that's what's being, or if that's the way I'm being treated, because oftentimes you just feel like you have to work harder to earn the same amount of respect, you know what I mean? Or you have to perform better or be better. And that, you know, it goes to serve us. I think women are outperforming a lot of men, maybe for similar reasons. And I think sexism for sure, and especially in different fields, is prevalent. I know I've felt it at least in certain parts of my profession, but I really try not to focus on it. You know, you just kind of work as hard as you can and be the best that you can. But you do feel like sometimes that you have a little bit of a handicap, unfortunately.
Yeah. So your thoughts is that it's kind of the way that the world is, unfortunately, both from how people interact with people, as well as our own perceptions that we put on ourselves. And the best way to kind of face it is to not focus on it and just keep doing the work. Is that what you'd say?
Well, at least for me, like I mean, I'm 4'10", right? But I've never felt my size. And I think it's about like, yeah, I try not to focus on those things, because if not, they become my own anchors. And so that's the most insight I have into it, because I really don't think about it too much. And if I find I'm around people who are sexist, I just don't want to work with you. I'm sorry. You know?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. It's about like being very selective about the people that you share their company with, that you interact with, that reflect the beliefs back to you.
And that's a big thing too with, I think, when you form a business, is even the people you choose to do business with should be in alignment with your philosophies, because you want to support people who are like-minded, and then you guys stick together. You know, it becomes like a team where you help to build each other up.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I'm curious if you have thoughts on how you cannot focus on it, because I think that that's a very good point. The more we focus on it, is the more we start to internalize it as a belief, and the more it, just like you very eloquently said, it becomes our anchor and our own like definition of ourselves. But I think sometimes it's hard for people not to think about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is that something that happens with you, where it's a challenge to not think about it, or it's very easy for you to decide, I'm not going to think about that, I'm just going to refocus?
I think because I've surrounded myself with people who never, ever made me feel small. It never really comes up. And the few times it's happened in, say, my residency program, where, you know, maybe I felt like that, I just busted my ass until I could get out of there, you know, like, and then the people who would see me for who I should be would be the people that I would connect with. I would just choose not to connect with those types of people. So it's just about protecting your boundaries, and then keeping the people who will big you up, because if people don't like elevate you, lift you up, they're just not worth your time. And so that's the way I've done it. It's not something I feel like I've mentally had to try not to think about. I just choose not to put myself in those situations for longer than, unless I have to be, you know?
Yeah. So would you say like a simplified way of looking at it is situations that you feel good and that you feel good to be who you are and you want to be more in those situations, and then situations where you feel self-conscious and made small, you just want to make sure that you're like keeping yourself out of those situations?
Right. Not unless I have to, unless I'm forced to be in them, and then
you power through until you can get out of them.
Power through it. Yeah, you power through, and you just always take the high road. You never, ever stoop. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you seem to me like a very mentally strong person in general, right? Like obviously from knowing you since we were born, but also through this process, I feel like anybody who is watching this is going to be feeling the same. Do you think that you're just born mentally strong, or is there something that you want people to know that could be helpful for them?
I don't think you're necessarily born mentally strong. I think we have definitely different strengths that may make things seem that way. But mental strength is just about doing anything that's not easy to do, right? If you know, like for instance, like knowing what's the right thing is usually not always the easiest thing, especially when it comes to ambition and goals and everything like that. And I think it's just a practice, you know, to either always be reaching and always kind of being okay with the pain of that and the growing pains, to build that.
Yeah, this is such a great perspective, which is essentially that mental strength is something that you build. Because it's true, like you seem like this, but you told us this story about when you literally had autoimmune things happening when you went through a lot of stress that I guess forced you to move into building that mental strength that made you a more resilient person. I think it's helpful for people because, you know, sometimes we don't want to do something because we feel like, well, I'm not mentally strong, but it's a helpful perspective because it helps us to realize that we need to practice doing those things that are uncomfortable in order to build that mental strength.
And then it gets easier every time. Like the things that are harder to do are things you maybe never thought you could do before.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, my last question for you. This has been so great. The guy's completely unprepared. She had no idea what questions I was going to ask her. She used to have terrible public speaking. Very so funny. Any advice you'd give to women with sensitive nervous systems who want to have it all, but they doubt, like, can I? Because it's hard for me to handle other people's emotions. It's hard for me because I overthink or whatever the case is.
I think everything we put into our bodies is key, you know. At least for my autoimmune issues, that's what it was. It was diet, exercise, and finding that time to recharge and have space. And I'm not just saying this because I know like what you and Juliana are building, but you know, having that time right before bed where I use that magic lotion, which I totally doubted the first time I used it. I was like, how the hell is this lotion supposed to make me feel relaxed? Like, ridiculous. I don't know how I'm gonna have the heart to tell you this, but yeah, no, but honestly, putting it on, like, I look forward to doing it at night, to be able to unwind and then to actually feel my body physically, almost like better than if I had smoked, you know, marijuana or drank a glass of wine, to just completely relax. And you know, now I've gotten into meditation, so I find that sometimes that's a perfect time to do that combination.
Nice.
So yeah, so I think it's you know, the self-care, that's huge.
Well, thank you for this very unrequested plug. That somehow worked out perfectly. I was not expecting that.
I wish I know, but I could not help but not bring it up. I mean, as you know, we've all been like battling over who's going to get the second batch and how much and when.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But it is a really good point, right? Which is that, and that's part of the reason why we came up with this, right? Like you don't have, sometimes we want to do everything at once. We're like, okay, I need to focus on wellness and self-care. So I need to do all the things at once. Then we feel like we're failing because we're trying to do all the things, right? It's great to start with something that makes you feel really good, that opens up the door for more things that feel more natural and easier, and you can build on it. And then before you know it, you're doing all these things that are really healthy for yourself that don't feel like an effort. They just feel like a part of your routine.
No, definitely. Because even like this, I sometimes just put on the lotion and watch TV, like watch My Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or Schitt's Creek. And it's like, I'm not doing anything different, but I feel different.
Okay, I think, I know I said that was the last question, but I have another last question for you, which is, you know, the name of this series is LUMNA Sisterhood, Women Empowering Women for a Better World. Is there something that you would like to see change in particular for women in the world?
Oh, wow.
You know, it's a big one to drop on you. Or like, is there a way in which you would like to see women empowering women more?
Yeah. Okay, because that was actually where I was going to go with it. Was I would love, you know, we live in this world now where everything seems so digital, and you know, as great as it is about connecting people from far apart, I wish there was more of a physical community of people with like-minded, you know, lives, or just similarities that bring them together. Maybe you're looking for the same similar things, or you're going through similar things. So I think that's what's lacking. But at the same time, we all have limited time, as we've been saying, that it's so difficult to I guess find the time to make the groups, and then they do exist. It's just, yeah, if there was a way we could put in extra time in our day and more energy into our body, and
So just more community with like-minded people.
yeah.
And I think there's ways to do it. Like, I think this is one, right? Like having honest, real conversations about things that people don't usually talk about, that allow people to feel less alone. That's one way to do it, right? Like, we're already like addicted to our phones. This is one way of having an uplifting, supportive experience with that. And then I think like on a middle ground, I think it's reconnecting with people more. Like you were the one that started calling me, and I'm like, who calls people like unprompted, like text me or schedule a Zoom call. And then it became nice to just chat with people when you're in traffic and feel that sense of community, because we're so disconnected. To the like other extent, where sometimes we have like, sometimes I host a sound bath where we have like a sisterhood of people that come, and it could be 3 people, it could be 5 people, it could be 6 people. And we do like a, like sound meditation, and it just is a nice way to just kind of re-energize yourself. So something that's good for yourself that you also feel in community with, because I think we forget that that's such a fundamental part of how we evolved, especially as women. Like we would not have survived evolutionarily speaking without that community, and that's why we crave it so much. So I think it was such a great reminder for people to find a way to integrate that into their life, especially with people who share similar values, and like what you were saying earlier, see the best in you and lift you up and reflect that to you.
Yeah,
this has just been an incredibly enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for your time and for being here and for sharing your heart with me always, and now with the LUMNA fam.
I am so happy to be here, honestly. And talking about all of that, I love the part about real conversation, because you can spend time with people, but you're always so great at having real conversations. So I think that this whole talk show will be amazing.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Dr. Chang. You guys can find Lindsay at, is it lindsay.endo?
I think it's lindsaychang.endo. Let me double check.
I'll link her here. And her practice is Lodi Endodontist. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I really love about what you did with that is, you came into something, and I mentioned this in the beginning about doing things your own way. And I think that this is something that is beautiful to share with women, right? Sometimes we come into something, we think we just have to do it the way it's been done. And you really took a heart-centered approach to what you wanted to create in the practice that I think is really resonating with people. Do you want to share what that is, so that, I don't know, I think it's inspiring to hear how people are doing different things in their professions.
So, well, I think we are alluding to the thing that makes me and Matt, gives us the most fulfillment, which is we used to be really focused on our root canals, which we still are very much, but we found we get the most joy out of how much can we give to all the people we're around. So it's the people development part of our practice now that gives us that sense of like, this is amazing. I love being a business owner, because now we get to grow together. So we have a book club. We've read 3 books already. And every time we read a book together, you can just tell it changes the lives of the people we're working with. And so we started out with the 4 agreements and Who Moved My Cheese. And now we're on Develop the Leader Within. And Develop the Leader Within has been really amazing, because before that book, a lot of people would come to us with all the problems. And as leaders, our job is to fix problems, but we were like, we can't fix everybody's problems. We need more leaders here. And so now being able to develop them into that while they're reading and they're becoming, we have a girl that started with us at 18 and now she's 22. And she says all the time, she's like, I grew up here, like this is where I grew up. And this is, I wasn't confident until I started working here. So you can just tell it it gives people so much more than just a job.
Mhm.
And just being able to share that with them and to take this journey with them and see what do they want to do in the practice and how can we make everything a win-win has been the most fulfilling thing. And it's honestly what makes us love what we do so much.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's interesting for women in particular, because, women are generally more heart-centered in how we do things. And sometimes we feel in business that that's a weakness. And I think one thing I really admired is seeing how you really embrace that aspect of yourself. And, didn't necessarily, it's not like you were being strategic about it. You really just wanted to do good by everyone in this way, right? Which is like really building up people that you work with, but also building up the community. I know you guys do a lot of things where you support small business in the community, and really making patients enjoy the experience instead of being afraid of a root canal. So it's just that kind of heart-centered approach that you've brought to everything that really differentiates you guys, that has made it made it a unique thing for you that's really good for your business, where people drive like an hour to do a root canal for you. And I think it's important for us as women to remember that, right? Like to bring who we are to what we're doing that makes it special, and not be ashamed or feel self-conscious in any way about who we are.
Right. I mean, I think that's 100% true. I think, we did it not because we thought it would be great for the business. We're realizing it's tenfold, what we could have been doing before, like maybe just finding the more expert person. We realized, no, we can grow people to be more than expert, and to actually care about what they're doing. So it's eye-opening, because I think in this world, and we live in a very capitalistic world, it's like we just want more and more and more. But sometimes more and more and more doesn't give you any fulfillment. You know what I mean? And so we really want it to be fulfilled in that sense, where you're fulfilled at home with your family, but you want to be fulfilled when you go to work with the people you're with,
So true.
And we want them to be fulfilled, or else it's not going to work. They're going to cause problems because they maybe want to leave, or and so how can we create families in both places so that there's harmony all the time? That's the goal,
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's a great point also to bring up for people, because sometimes we feel like we don't deserve to have a life where we feel fulfilled at work and at home. Like, who am I to ask for something like this? But it's such an important point. We spend, more than half our life at work. And not only is it like important for us to have that for our life, but it is also good for the people around us, for the people that we're working with, for the business in general, for our family, because we're a happy person. And it's possible and realistic.
And I want to say though that it's not, some people may think, oh, well, it's not good business sense, because we do take off every week we take off a half a day to do team building, and that doesn't make us any money at all. We're not seeing any patients during that time. And we also do different team trips where we, do different trainings and stuff, and that costs money to do that. But it's an investment is what it is. You don't see it initially, but it will repay you.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so this has been amazing. I wanted to ask, what was your favorite, the lotion is called Relax and Restore. So I wanted to ask what your favorite Relax and Restore tip is. I feel like you told us, which is the Relax and Restore lotion. But is there anything else that one of your favorite things to do in order to relax and restore yourself?
It's yoga. Yeah.
Yeah.
That just grounds me and centers me. So I feel lucky that I have that hobby, because it's a very spiritual practice as well. And I think it's the spirituality in the practice that gives me that. It's not necessarily the physical act of it, but it's the combination of the body, the mind, and the soul.
Well, the Yoga Bhakti is going to blow your mind. We're going to a yoga festival. I can't wait. Okay, my love, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. We're so lucky to have had you here.
Love you.
See you.
Bye.